Okay, everyone, it's Sunday night, but it's Saturday Night Live's 50th anniversary. I was just watching the show there for a while. Super funny. Love all those old comedians, from years ago. Dan Aykroyd, Eddie Murphy, you name it. Me and Charlie went to Victoria for the weekend for Valentine's kind of night day. And looking up a little more of my family history down there. My great-great-granny and my great-great-grandfather. They were some of the first professional photographers ever in the area. Did a lot of the early scenes of the early days in Victoria and on the south end of the Vancouver Island all the way up to Haida Gwaii. So I'm pretty proud of that. I've talked to my friend Ben about that. Ben's Tree Service over in Vancouver, my buddy I hang out with. Hey, Ben. He just got himself a carburetor gauge, so we're going to go over some doing some carburetor pressurizing testing and some pop-off pressure testing that I've kind of taught him. And we're going to deal that tomorrow. But I've had some inquiries about some 2100 stuff, especially on the 2100 of why this big saw doesn't rev up. Well, there's a couple different things why it doesn't really rev up. Mainly the governed carburetor, which is right here. And I'll zoom you in a second so you can see it a little better, exactly where this governor is in this carburetor and how the whole function of it works actually. Right from the motor itself, from the intake block, to the carburetor, to the gas tank where the fuel comes out of the gas tank. We're going to talk about that in a second, but I'm going to share a little bit of technical stuff about this saw. Just give me a sec here. Eat a bunch of peanuts, I'm all dry. Excuse me. So the 2100, here we go. Brand new operator's manual. Not brand new, old, but it's new and original. Technical inspection, 99 displacement, bore 56, stroke 40, ignition advance, 8,000 RPM at 24 degrees before top dead center. So if any of you have ever used a timing light and stuff, if you put a timing light on this, it should be 24 degrees at 8,000 RPM. Basic spark plug carburetor tilt at HS136 with speed governor, and that's what we're going to go over here in a second, and we're going to talk about that. And a couple guys were commenting, like I said, they couldn't get any RPM out of them, so I explained it to them to watch one of my videos, but I'm not sure if I actually covered it properly. So tonight I'm going to cover just 2100 stuff, not a Tillotson carburetor, not a certain different model. It's only 2100 with the Tillotson carburetor though, but how it all functions together. So here we go. There's the original carburetor off of 2100 because me and 2100 Steve, hey Steve, we just ripped a whole bunch of 2100s apart here. Every one that I had here in the shop. Okay, we found some good cylinders, some good pistons, carburetors, we think. This one I've never looked at. I don't know how old it is and which one it's off of, but we're going to dive into this. I'm going to show you the functions on it and how the speed governor works on these. Right here from Alan Roberts, I believe was the original owner, but another fellow, darn it, I'm sorry, I can't remember your name. He flies planes and stuff. He gave me this beautiful 2100 that's at Johnny's place in his game room. That's like brand new, and I have the original workshop manual for it, and chainsaw model 2100. We're going to dive right to the carburetor system. Oh, I also wanted to show you 2100s. Originally had A, B, and C cylinder kits. So A cylinder is A piston, and the rest from there, B and C, have to match up. It was just something to do with tolerance, and then after that, they never came out with stuff like that. So we're going to flip right to the carburetor system on this. This book's really cool. It gives you all the tools, part numbers, and all that. Anyone wants to know something, maybe I can redo this book and send it to people. Or you could probably already order it online from someone. Okay, let's go to the carburetor function of the speed governor. Okay, I'm going to zoom you in now, and we're going to go through this carburetor as I'm talking here. Then I'm going to reverse the camera so you can see me with the book here, actually how it's supposed to be set up. Okay, so let's see if I can zoom in here. I'm walking a little too much, but at least I'm walking, right? Let's go to double zoom down here on this carburetor, and we'll go over the function of it, how it all works. Hopefully most of you already know, but if you don't know, this is kind of what you need to know, or just going to explain how it works. Put my chair down. It's a hairdressing chair. Okay, so we have our basic carburetor here, Tillotson carburetor, which is one of the best carburetors ever made. Tillotson was, I believe, the first diaphragm carburetor the company came out, which that carburetor system is still almost in effect today, just like this Tillotson racing carburetor right here from Switzerland and IBEA. It's a racing kart engine carburetor. It still uses the original Tillotson top that they invented back in the 20s or 30s, okay? Amazing. A lot of older saws, pretty much all used to come with Tillotson carburetors, then Walbros and Zamas as well, okay? But this basic HS Tillotson here was pretty much the most famous one. This is I don't know what the millimeter bore is or anything, but it doesn't matter. I'm just telling you, this is the stock carburetor off it. And this is a 2100 cylinder here right now, and I'll explain how the carburetor function works. And I'll show you inside this carburetor, and then I'll show you the, the speed governor system, how it's governed through this engine, which is it's quite interesting. And I didn't really know that. Well, I knew about the governor years ago, but I didn't really actually ever pick up on the function and really even care about how it worked. I just knew we got rid of them to help the loggers out, get them to rev up a little bit more so they're faster chain turning with the smaller bars so they can limb better at a nicer RPM. And as long as you adjust your high right after you eliminate this, and we're going to go over that, you had no problem with it, okay? As long as you had a sharp chain and a good mix. So the function of the motor itself for this carburetor to work, most saws you have either an internal pulse system or an external with a spigot on the side here that runs through the carburetor to another spigot. This one is an internal one, and most of them are like this, okay? And what I'm talking about pulse is when the piston moves up and down, it creates like a vacuum, and it puts a pulse wave out of this hole, out of the intake block, to the carburetor through a hole here in the carburetor base part, okay? You have a gasket that lines up with this block here, and it has to line up with the carburetor. So if you ever fixing any of these or rebuilding one, make sure you have the proper Husqvarna gasket here that lines up properly on this intake block. Some people use the gasket kit that comes with a Tillotson, and they come with an intake gasket, but it's the wrong one. I got about 10 of them over there I could show you, but it doesn't match up to the intake block properly. So watch it on Husqvarna saws, almost every series of Husqvarna saws. This gasket here for 2100, 288, almost every model, 266, you got to use this nice green one from the factory, or an aftermarket one is maybe a different color, but the right shape, okay? So your pulse system runs from the engine to the carburetor here, and on the top of the carburetor right here, which is this right here is the top part of it, your fuel pump side, okay? Every carburetor has two sides. Fuel pump side, where the fuel goes into the motor, and then your metering side, where it's metered, the fuel is metered to your low and high speed jet, to your orifices and your idle circuit to get the fuel into the motor. So originally when you're starting to start a saw, you're getting a pulse wave. It's pumping the fuel pump on this side where the fuel line goes on, okay? So another thing is you got to make sure your fuel line is in perfect shape to the fuel tank with a good fuel filter, and you got proper gas in it with a vented gas tank with a vented cap or a vented system, okay? So make sure the fuel system to your carburetor is perfect before you even start on any of this. You got to remember the carburetor and the fuel systems are the lung of the engine. Take care of the lung, and the rest of your body works fine, or your rest of your saw. So now we're going to look at the carburetor here. We just talked about the fuel pump side here where the gas goes in. And as the pulse is working here, you have a fuel pump diaphragm in here pulsing up and down from this pulse. It's sucking gas out of the tank to the spigot on the carburetor. And then as you crack the throttle open or have the choke on, the gas is trying to get pulled through the orifices, the low speed idle circuit, low speed circuit, and high speed. More of the idle circuit though right away because the way your choke valve flap is on your fast idle or your idle setting. Excuse me, I still got a bit of a cough. So on the starting position, you have choke on right here with the flap, right? And you're on a fast idle. As you pull it over, the pulse waves are pulling the fuel into the carburetor and delivering enough fuel to make it start on a fast idle. You then take the choke off, pull it over again, and it'll start up on a fast idle. Then you warm it up, and then away you go with the saw. Okay, so that's how the function of it works for starting, and how it pulls the fuel out of the gas tank to the carburetor to do it. I hope I'm not talking too fast because sometimes I do. So anyways, that's how the fuel system works to your saw on almost every saw in the world. So let's get into the carburetor now. Our basic HS carburetor, but it's got the Husqvarna govener system on it, okay? So I'm going to swap the camera over to the other side now. We're going to look down at this, and you're going to get a little bit better idea how it works. Darn coal won't go away, man. Okay. Here we go. Okay. Hope everyone's having a good weekend. Valentine's Day with your honeys. Me and Shelly had a good time. Okay, so let's get rid of the cylinder. Over here. I'll wreck that. And here's the function of the carburetor with the governor. So on this saw here by the choke, on any of these carburetors, on some 181s, 281s, I believe. I don't know about 288s, but the 2100, 1100, I think had them. But right here where your choke lever goes to your choke to activate your choke on and off, you got a brass plug here, okay? So you want a nice flat blade to take it out, and you got to kind of just wiggle it sideways to get it out. You don't need to take the choke shaft out, okay? So I'm gonna show you that in a second to take it out, but I'm gonna read about the way this works, okay? So the speed governor here, the purpose of the governor is to limit the engine speed in order to protect vital parts like crankshaft and ignition system for excessive stresses. So you're not over revving it, right? We therefore advise most strongly against any interference designed to render its operation. When the saw is under load condition, the engine speed is limited to 10,500 RPM as the governor comes into operation. The steel ball and spring in the governor are so devised that vibrations in the carburetor at a certain engine speed cause the steel ball to open the fuel outlet. Okay, it opens this little ball in here with the spring. An excessively rich mixture is then obtained and the engine begins to four-stroke. The speed drops and the vibrations decrease. The steel ball then closes the outlet. The engine speed increases and the process is repeated again. So as you know, you let off and get into the wood, a little more under torque, it's obviously going to stop doing it. But as you get out of the wood a bit, as you're limbing, or you got a dull chain, you're over revving the thing, it's going to excessively dump fuel into the motor to compensate to keep it cool and run right. But you still want your carburetor set at a proper mixture. Now on this carburetor itself, the basic settings, I just seen it on one page here. Actually, it was in the owner's manual, which is a good thing. Yeah, let's go to that. In the owner's manual, I actually told you the carburetor setting, which is unusual for most saw manuals. This one here, here we go. Low speed, 1.2 turn. High speed, 1 turn out, okay? 12 2,500 RPM on the idle, and the high speed should be set by the governor or pretty much by the jetting, as long as your carburetor is all working properly. Okay, so I'm gonna take this brass piece out of here now. I'm gonna show you how this ball and spring work here. So it's unusual, like you think about it. So the way this system works is with vibration. So Husqvarna 2100s were the smoothest saws in the world, but very reliable and a nice power saw, like nice power to the saw. Okay, so the vibration that's being connected totally solid to the cylinder itself with this solid phenolic spacer here really gives you a lot of vibration to the carburetor. So when that thing's running at a certain RPM, that vibration level is obviously changing this speed governor ball spring system here that I'm going to show you in a second. And it's quite interesting how that works. So now with most saws, you have some had governors in the carburetor that just were just jetted differently in a carburetor where you couldn't over rev. But a lot of the new saws now have digital ignitions that have a speed governor in the ignition. But a person can still lean the carburetor out to make it run hotter, but it's not going to rev anymore, but it'll just run leaner, and that's not a good way to go. So you need to understand the setting of the carburetor when you're doing this modification to this carburetor, getting rid of the speed governor. You got to make sure you adjust your carburetor right in calibration to what you've done there by removing this. So now the saw is going to rev up to, I don't know, 12, 13,000 RPM or more if you wanted it to, but you'll probably blow the rod out of it. So you want to just, learn the ear for four-stroking and non-four-stroking or setting the high speed. I talk a lot about, low speed, high speed. It's sort of like cold and hot. You balance your cold just right, you get your hot adjusted in right. So as you're running your high speed out and you hear it running really crappy, right? With the bar and chain on, like really crappy. You turn it in just a bit so it smooths it up a bit, then leave it at that. As long as your mix is proper for your saw, you got good fuel, good mix, a sharp chain, and the engine's built properly with no air leaks, and the thing's going to run perfectly for you. So now let's get into the operation of this governor. I'm going to take it out right now. We've already talked about the operation of it. So what we used to use in the carb kit of a Tillotson, you get a little what I call Welsh plugs. It's for the low speed circuit of the carburetor and the high speed. The little aluminum plugs that you get with the carb kit to replace there when you clean your circuitry out. Okay, so this carburetor here already is just stock. There's nothing in there. It's just your passages. So when this ball opens up, it's going to provide fuel in there. So what you do with this is I'm going to get one of those right now because it's stupid I don't have it in my hand to show you. Okay, just give me a sec here. Give me a sec. I have one here somewhere. Carburetor kit. Oh my goodness. Come on, Donnie. Come on. Okay, I'm not going to waste the time. It's a little frost plug thing, okay? You get in the carb kit, little round aluminum one, okay? The small one for the high speed of the HES carburetor of the Tillotson carb kit. You fit it right in there with the bubble up, okay? So you put the Welsh plug in there, and it's a little aluminum disc, and it blocks that hole. So that I put a little bit of glue around this brass fitting, just because so it doesn't leak any air, okay? So just a little bit of silicone on it, or gasket maker is what I would do. Not silicone, gasket maker. So then screw it back in. It'll get a little bit tight as it squishes that Welsh plug. But give her a good one. And there you go. Now you've blocked off the governor of the carburetor. And now you're going to have to set this carburetor a little bit different. So what I would suggest is like on the carburetor itself at the high speed, open it up about a half a turn from the original setting, which we just talked about, which was 1 turn, right? So open it up 1.5 turn, run your saw, warm it up a bit. As long as everything else is perfect on the saw, run it up a bit, get it to 4-stroke, turn it until it runs smooth, and there you go. It'll rev a lot more than it did with that governor, and when it's out of the wood, you won't hear that misfiring of the motor that most people think's the ignition, but it isn't. It's just a rich running condition. So the 2100, yeah, man, great old saws. That's some good information for you. Thanks, buddy, for the 2100 stuff a few years back. And tomorrow I'm going to show Ben how to use the carburetor gauge. This is one gauge, for checking the pressure of the needle, making sure your needle's not leaking, your carburetor's not leaking anywhere. Okay, certain PSA you want to check. I got several different ones of this. This is just a basic one from Echo or Husky. I have an old McCullough one here. Actually, the gauge ain't working anymore, but I wish I could fix that. So I have an original McCullough one. And this is a basic one I get from Echo Shindawa. It's a nice one, but it doesn't pump up a lot of heavy pressure, where my other one here does. So that's why I have, this one. That's why I have a couple different ones, because some of them I'm not satisfied with, and I just recheck them once in a while to make sure the pressure's right. You can order any of these online through that marketing place that everyone likes to go to, Amazon. But try your local dealer or try someone else. But Amazon, yeah, you can buy these for about 25 bucks, and you get a whole kit, and it works just fine. So, if that's what you want, the way you get it, go right ahead, or go to your local dealer and buy a Husky or Still or Echo one, but you'll pay a lot more, but it's a little bit better quality. So that's all I want to say about that. So there you go. If anyone had that interest in the 2100, that's how it works. I guess I didn't show you all the other functions, how the carb works, but you get it, how the fuel pump works, how the governor works, and then the metering system. I'm going to go over that tomorrow with the carb testing part of it, okay? We'll take this one apart. Actually, we'll do this carburetor, yeah. And I'm going to take it apart, show you the fuel pump side, the metering side, the low speed, the high speed, those Welsh plugs I just talked about, where you can clean out your circuitry of the jets, and go from there. So there you go, part 2 of a 2100 carburetor. You all have a good night. It's been a long weekend. It's Sunday night. I don't normally come down here that much, but keep your saw into it, sticking nice, rubbing around. Have a great day. Maintain your saw good. Okay, bye now.